Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am here to review You, Me, and My Ex. This is season 1, episode 4, Excess Baggage. I know I am extremely late with this review recap. I had family visiting this whole weekend. I had an aunt staying with me, and I can't record when somebody's here. I'm too self-conscious and my place is too small, so I'm trying to catch up. So let's jump into the review. Let's talk about Josh and Jennifer first because they had a really short segment. Josh and Jennifer, you may recall, are the exes. Jennifer is now married to Chantal, a woman, and they are trying to get pregnant with the help of Josh, Jennifer's ex-husband. He has been so kind as to donate some sperm to them. They've taken a few tests in the past. They've come back negative, but this time Chantal takes the pregnancy test, and it comes back positive. She's pregnant. So of course they call over Josh and his new wife Danielle to share the news. When Josh and Danielle get there, they share with the camera that their life lately has really just revolved around being the sperm donor for Jennifer and Chantal. They just sort of work around Chantal's ovulation schedule. Josh is having to time things, back things up a little bit so that it's ready to go when it needs to go. Anyway, finally, Chantal and Jennifer share with Danielle and Josh, I'm trying to keep these names straight, that they're pregnant. Everybody's really excited. Danielle jumps up, hugs them, asks them if they're excited. Chantal is extremely excited. She, can't wait to be a mom, and also like sharing this experience with all of them. And then of course, the conversation delves into, okay, what exactly is Josh's role gonna be? Like, Jennifer says straight out, you'll never be dad, like never. And Chantal's like, we'll explain to the child, when they're old enough to understand, Josh is biologically, your father, he provided DNA to create you in sort of non-conventional way. And Danielle, Josh's wife, is like, well, he'll have influence, and a consistent influence because he'll always be there. Danielle can't imagine that he won't be attached in some way. But, Jennifer is quick to remind all of them, okay, but he is not the dad. We are the mommies. Like, it's just us. And, Josh is like, well, that might be hard to explain to a 4-year-old. And I'm thinking, especially when this child has, like half brother and half sister. I mean, I wouldn't consider them halves. In my family, where there is sort of, a different mom or a different dad, we don't call each other like, oh, that's my half sister, so that's my sister. And perhaps it might be the same way in this family. So why would it be that, Chantal and Jennifer's child looks at their siblings calling this guy dad, and he technically, biologically is his dad, but can't call him dad the way his brother and sister can. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think it can be confusing. So clearly, they have a general idea of how this can play out, but it's new to all of them, in particular Josh. So he's wondering if maybe they thought everything out really clearly. I don't think they have. In theory, it sounds like a good idea, and it's maybe convenient to use Josh, but I don't think it, if you really just want it to be the mommies and he is not dad, a lot of confusion, it's there. So we'll see what happens. That was it. Congratulations though, babies are a blessing. Let's talk about Alex and Caroline. If I didn't mention earlier, this was a really good episode because a lot happened with a lot of these couples. So let's get into Alex and Caroline. Alex is going to take Caroline to meet his family. They're going to go to Alex's dad's house so that she can meet the dad and the other sister that she hasn't met, Tiffany, that we met last week, that went ring shopping with him. And she's already met Jessica at Thanksgiving, if you recall. So of course, Caroline is nervous like anybody would be meeting their, partner's family for the first time. Alex is also nervous because he just doesn't know what to expect from his family. They could be loud, they could be unpredictable. And also, he mentions that he calls his dad Brian because he says that he can be more immature than he is, Alex. So they get to the house, everybody meets everybody. It's all very cordial. The dad is kind of, he's a fun guy. He tells Caroline, you can call me Big Papa. And she's like, no, I can't call you that actually. That was the name of like my old car that I used to drive. And he tells her like, oh, well, I can give you a good ride. And I'm just like, oh, no, 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 daddy, no, that's a little inappropriate. But I mean, it's all in good fun. I think the dad is harmless. So as they're sitting there having their dinner, getting to know each other, lo and behold, Steven calls like he always does, you know, and of course, Alex answers like he always does. And the sister, Jessica's like, oh my gosh, Alex, give me the phone. I want to talk to him, you know, because she loves Steven, and they're chatting. And then she's like, oh, you know, I'm going to give you back to Alex. And I mean, I guess I will say the way it was edited, the phone call was wrapped up pretty quickly. You know, Alex was just like, okay, I'll call you later, bye. And the sister Tiffany asks Caroline, like, how do you feel about that? Like, how do you feel about that friendship Alex has with Steven and how he's calling all the time and that's like his ex? And before Caroline could even answer, because she's just like, you know, Alex is like, she's fine. She doesn't care. It doesn't bother her. And the dad's like, but I thought you said you moved on and you let that go. And Alex is like, yeah, I have. I have moved on. But I mean, you know, I'm not going to start taking advice from you, like, of all people. And the dad's like, it's not about taking my advice. It's about just, like, respect for your woman who's sitting right next to you, and you have, like, your ex calling you. Like, that's, you know, that's not really cool. And Alex is like, it doesn't bother her. And the dad's like, well, let me ask you, Caroline, like, do you still talk to your ex-boyfriend? And Caroline's like, no, not really. And the dad's like, okay, why? Why don't you talk to him? And Caroline says, well, you know, I just don't really see the need for it, right? And then she goes on to say, and also, like, you know, after we broke up, like, he kind of moved on with another man. And the family's like, oh, damn, like, no way. Like, and so Tiffany says, like, oh, so, like, he turned gay? And Caroline's like, no, I wouldn't say that. Like, I wouldn't say he turned gay. And Tiffany's like, okay, then what would you call it then? And Caroline looks to Alex and says, well, what do you consider your brother to be? And this question sort of opens the floodgates for this, you know, explosion that's about to happen that didn't quite make sense to me. But here's how it goes. Tiffany looks at Alex like, well, you know, actually, I don't know what he considers himself. I mean, what he labels himself is, you know, what she's saying. Like, I don't know, like, what do I call you? And he gives the best answer. Alex says, you can call me Alex, which I loved, you know. You know, and she says, like, no, really, like, what do you consider yourself? And he's like, you know, it doesn't matter. Like, it's, you know, it shouldn't matter what I consider myself, and not just like it's nobody's business. And it's, you know, quickly just like escalating the tones, the level of, you know, voices, the volume. And she's like, yeah, I know it's not really, you know, generally my business what people consider themselves, call themselves, label themselves, but you're my brother. Like, you know, I want to know, like, I'm trying to, you know, get to know you. I don't want to, like, you know, say the wrong thing. And he's like, it doesn't matter. And they're going back and forth. It's getting louder and louder. And so finally she's like, well, I'm a demisexual. Okay. And she's like, okay, there you go. That's all I wanted. And that should be the point where it's like done. He said it fine. But, you know, I got lost, you guys, in this discussion, this argument, because it went from 0 to 100, and they're going back and forth. They're both kind of shouting, not really listening. She's sort of arguing like, I'm just trying to understand, you know, because there's different, you know, categories and subcategories of, you know, the LGBTQIA. I don't want to say it wrong. And he's like, you know, it doesn't matter. I don't think he really likes to label himself. I mean, I don't want to speak for him. But he's saying in this sort of argument back and forth, like, I don't care about somebody's, you know, gender, their identity. Like, I only care about the person's heart. They could be a man, they could be a woman, they could be whatever. Like, I just care about like a person's soul. But it's loud, and I would imitate it, but I don't want to like disrupt my neighbors. But it's getting loud, and they're just going back and forth. And he's saying like, I already said you're not listening. Like, I already told you. And she's just like, you don't have to yell. Like, we're just trying to have a conversation. I'm gonna irritate my throat now. They're going back and forth, and he like gets up, you know, he knocks the chair over, like, I'm leaving, I'm out of here. And, you know, Tiffany's like, you don't have to leave. Like, we're just having a conversation. She's like, yes, but you're not listening to me. Like, he kept saying that over and over. And he looks at Karen like, are you ready to go? Because I'm going to leave. Like, I'm leaving right now, you know, in his Kill Bill sweatsuit, if I didn't mention it. And he like walks out, and before Caroline has a chance to even like grab her purse, he takes off. You know, Caroline's just like, hey, nice to meet you. Bye, guys. She walks out, and he's gone. Like, he just boned out of there. Like, and she's looking around like, did he really leave? Like, talking to the producer, like, did he really just leave me? Is he gone? Like, he's not here? And you can hear her kind of getting emotional, like, what, can you guys like give me a ride home? And the producers tell like, yeah, we just need to pack up the cameras. So she goes back to like the house, like, hi guys, like, hello. She walks in, you could tell everybody kind of went to other rooms, like they thought they were done filming, and they kind of like, come back in like, did he leave you? And she's like, yeah. And they're just like, oh my gosh, are you sure you want to be part of this family? And she probably is really questioning that right now. So the producers take her home. She's sad. I'd be pissed. Like, don't you ever leave me. Don't you ever drive, like, at your family's house that I just met like an hour ago. Like, I'd be pissed. But she's more sad than anything. She said she was crying in the car. She goes in. He's like already in bed, like in his pajamas. Like, I don't know if there were, I don't even know. So she sits down in the bed like, what happened? Like, that was a lot. Like, you left me. That's not cool. She's very calm. And he's like, yeah, I know. Like, I'm sorry. It was just, I was so upset. I was mortified as fuck. Like, I didn't know what else to do. And she's like, okay, but we could have came home together. Like, I get it. Here's the thing. Her issue isn't ever really with Alex, that Steven calls all the time might be annoying, but she's not threatened by it because she just sees it as Steven not really being over Alex yet. I don't know. I mean, that's possible. I don't really know Steven. We haven't had a confessional with him. We just get like quick FaceTime calls. He could still be, wanting to be with Alex. I don't know, possibly. But what I do know is I can see that Alex isn't, I don't know that he's still like in love with Steven, but he hasn't dealt with like the breakup, the emotions. Like, I don't know that he still wants to be with him, but there's still something there. I don't think Alex is over the relationship. Maybe he's over Steven, but not what happened. And, Caroline is more like, I don't appreciate your family's questioning, which is fair. But she really doesn't appreciate the family always bringing up Alex. And I'm like, they're not always bringing up Alex, or always bringing up Steven. I'm sorry. She doesn't appreciate the family always bringing up Steven. But Steven's always calling, and Alex is always answering. And it's kind of like the elephant in the room. Like, he's just always there, whether we want him or not. And Alex looks at it like, Caroline doesn't have an issue with Steven. She just has an issue with how close the family is with Steven and how they've, embraced him and how, they just can't seem to let him go. And my thing is, this is all like on Alex. Like, I tried to be very diplomatic in my previous reviews, like, oh, maybe he shouldn't cut Steven off. But no, I think he needs to cut Steven off. Like, absolutely. I mean, maybe, yes, they can be friends somewhere down the line. But right now, I mean, the way you present Steven to the family is how the family is going to take it. Like, Steven is still occupying that seat at the family dinner table next to Alex, if that makes sense. There is no room for Caroline to be welcomed and embraced because you still have Steven sitting there, and that's on Alex. Like, I had a boyfriend years ago that my family really liked. He met my extended family. I took him to like family weddings. Like, everybody loved him because they all thought we had this perfect relationship. I mean, no relationship is perfect. What it was I was very private. So if he and I were in a fight and we had like an event to go to, whether his family or my family, I would say, like, we're going to backburn this fight, this argument, whatever. We're going to go to this event, barbecue, whatever. We're going to have a good ass time. And then when we get home, we'll pick this up where we left off. Like, and that's exactly what we would do. So when we finally broke up, everybody was just so shocked and just like, really? What? For a few months, like, oh, when they would like, where, I almost said his name. Where's the boyfriend? I'd be like, oh, we broke up. Oh, really? Like, you think you're not going to get back together? Oh, we really liked him. Like, this went on, like I said, for a few months until finally my dad, who had a really good relationship with him, asked me one day, like, are you sure you're just not going to work it out with him? Like, maybe you should really try. And I finally had to say, like, you know what, Dad? No, he has a new girlfriend. She's the girl he cheated on me with. And my dad was like, oh. And without missing a beat, he said, well, we know she can't compare to you. And that, of course, made me feel 1,000 times better. And from that moment on, my dad never uttered his name again. It's like, the family will get on board. You got to take the lead. Like, when you stop bringing them around and talking about them and they're not like, out of sight, out of mind. That is my theory, and that is my advice to this relationship. Like, if you really want, to be taken seriously with Caroline and not have all these questions about Steven, you gotta let Steven go. Like, if Caroline's your boo, you gotta make room for the new and get rid of Steven. It's just my advice, but what do I know? It's just an odd show. I'm rhyming. Okay, I'll stop. So that was kind of where we left them. She was just like, okay, he apologized, she accepted, and, they understand each other. They're going to go meet her mom next week, and I think it's going to be a lot more questioning. Not just from his family, but from her family too. So we'll see what happens with them next week. All right, let's talk about Jimmy and Lisa. They're heading out to Florida, Florida or bust, with their new, well, Lisa's fiance Jack and Jimmy's wife Wendy, And, Jimmy and Wendy are kind of the apprehensive ones. Well, Jack is too, a little bit like, how is this really going to go? Jimmy and Wendy just are trying to, cross their fingers, and they just want to survive the trip, And Lisa just says, like, there's a lot of unresolved feelings between her and Jimmy. And, this trip is just going to be the opportunity for them to sort of just like resolve it all. Okay. So they drive to like, I don't know if it's like the RV bus camper rental lot. And, Lisa billed this trip as that she was going to get them like the badass, tricked out, rock star, like tour bus. No, they get the camper parked next to the tricked out rock star tour bus. Like, it is a small camper too. Like, this wasn't really how the trip was sold to me, Lisa. That's what I would be saying if I was wondering. Like, they go, it's like a little like stove burner, the Formica, kitchen table. I'm just like, whatever, they're all good sports about it. And Jack is going to do the driving. So they get in and they're driving through Virginia, and, Lisa's like, oh my gosh, Virginia. Like, that was the name of my dad's girlfriend at the time when I married Jimmy. And she's the reason my dad didn't come to the wedding, because, she just hated my mom so much, couldn't be in the same room with her, that, she kept my dad from the wedding. I'm like, I wish a bitch would. Like, keep my dad from my wedding? Absolutely not. But that's really not like the point of the story. The point of the story is that it reminds Wendy that, like, oh, that's funny, because I heard that, when me and Jimmy got married, you like took a weekend trip to Paris because you just, you couldn't be around, and you hated me. Like, you hated me. And Lisa to the camera's like, who told her that I went to Paris? Like, I never told her that. Like, well, obviously Jimmy told her. And so, Lisa very emotionally recants, with Jack just but a few feet away, that, she had to leave that weekend of the wedding. She had to get away, and it had to be like on the other side of the world, because she couldn't even be in the same time zone. Because she just didn't want to know like what time it was and the wedding was happening. She just needed such a great distraction in another like country and another time zone. She wouldn't dwell on it, think about it. And Jack is like sitting right there hearing all this. And Jimmy's like in the passenger seat, like listening. And, Wendy's like, I get it. I'm like, I don't get it. Like, I get it if she was still like in love with Jimmy and was just in so much pain and hurt, like, So Wendy asks her like, did you think you guys were gonna get back together or could get back together? Now in the confessional, Lisa says like, had Jimmy not married Wendy, she knows for a fact they would have gotten back together. But to the group, she says, no, I didn't think we could get back together. I was just upset because I knew now that he was remarried, I was not going to be like the number one priority in his life. And again, she's saying this very emotionally. And Jack's like, I had no idea. That's why we went to Paris. I didn't know he got married that weekend. That's the first time hearing of it. And so Elisa feels a little bit put on blast, like, damn, Wendy, like, why are you saying all this and bring this up? But hey, I mean, didn't you want to resolve all these things, Lisa? I mean, Jack is very, I haven't talked a lot about him, the fiance to Lisa. In this episode, it's very clear that he's just like a really quiet, passive guy. And anytime he's like being filmed, he looks miserable. Like he doesn't want to be there. And he probably doesn't. Like I don't know what he does for a living, but it's like, if I were Jack, like, yeah, I'd be like, I don't really want to participate in this. I think he must really love her, because he just kind of looks like I don't know, like a doormat. I don't want to say that, but just like, he's hearing all this, getting, his fiance getting emotional about her ex-husband. Like, I don't know. I feel sorry for Jack. Sorry, but I don't at the same time. He could have pulled that camper over and been like, I'm out of here. He has a high level tolerance for bullshit, if you ask me. But anyway, as they're like traveling from state to state, it's kind of just like this montage we get. And, yes, Jimmy and Lisa are being very flirty. You know, he's throwing like his dirty underwear on her head, and she's just kind of laughing like, oh my God, this better not be your underwear. And then, you know, she pulls it off like, she throws it. I'm like, that's like the equivalent of your balls in my face. Exactly. Ew, disgusting. But she thinks it's cute and funny. She thinks like, you know, we just have this rapport. We've known each other forever. You know, it's silly. It's, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like, you know, he's like fixing her lipstick like it's like out of like a line, like she's kind of gone out of the line. So he's like, you know, they're in the camper at the Formica table, and he's like got a napkin and he's like cleaning it up for her. And I'm just like, what are you doing? You know, she's sitting there and he notices her, like her pedicure, and he's just like, wow, your toes look beautiful. Like, oh, it's a great like paint job. And I'm just like, he's like complimenting her toes. Like, I mean, and this all seems maybe innocent and harmless enough, but Wendy sees it and she's getting increasingly annoyed. Like, what are you guys doing? You know, he's talking about like, you know, he's just like, you know, hey, Jimmy's like, hey, Lisa, don't forget to put like the pimple cream on your ass. And, you know, she's just kind of laughing. It's just like, boundaries, right? So, you know, they interview, interestingly, Wendy and Jack together, like off somewhere, just the two of them. And they both like agree, like they're being very flirty. It's really inappropriate. You know, you have your wife here, you have your fiance. We don't like it. We see it. They both do. They're both like, yeah, we see it. They finally get to Florida and they decide to go on like an airboat to go look at alligators. And so they all get on the boat, you know, it's kind of gloomy. They're, you know, whizzing around, seeing the alligators. They kind of slow down at one point, and Jimmy looks over at Lisa, and I guess he notices she has like a bug on her face, so he's kind of like, you know, like wiping it off, and Lisa's just like, like, you know, not like, ew, what is it? What's going, you know, she just, and, you know, Wendy's just like, what's going on? And Jimmy's just like, oh, she's got like a bug on her face, you know, like, and he finally gets it off like, it's a bug, you know? And Wendy looks at him like, can you stop? Like, you know, she kind of like puts her back to the other couple, Lisa and Jack, like, can you stop? And he's just like, what? Huh? Like, what? And she's like, seriously, just stop. And, you know, in his confessional, Jimmy's like, she had a bug on her face. She got very jealous and insecure. Like, I just flicked it. No, you didn't. It was like a long, like 30-second with, you know, Lisa just like, you know, what? And, you know, Wendy's had it. She's just like, enough. You know, she tells the camera, like, if my husband touches her one more time, I'm going to kick their asses. Like, it's not appropriate. Like, you know, Jack is here. He can give all his attention to Lisa as he should. You're my husband. Pay attention to me. Like, you know, I don't think it's cute. I don't think it's funny. Like, I will kick ass. I do not care. And I'm like, all right. I thought Wendy was, you know, Jimmy writes it off like, oh, she can get jealous and insecure. I don't think it's jealousy and insecurity. It's just like, stop. Like, what are you doing? Like, to me, it's not. To me, it's just like, stop it. Like, it's just, I don't know. I'm with Wendy. It's annoying. You can see Lisa likes the attention, but it's like, but what do you want, Lisa? Like, he's with Wendy. He's married to Wendy. You're going to be with Jack. Like, what do we need to resolve any past issues for? Like, what do we need to delve into this for? Like, she's still into him. She still want him. Maybe, possibly. It looks that way. I think he likes Lisa being flirty with her. I don't know. I don't think he wants to be with her that way, but again, it's odd. It's odd how people operate, but you know, we're gonna get a good episode next week. There's gonna be a campfire and Lisa like throws her chair in the fire. But we'll talk about that next week. That's where we leave them. Wendy's had it, you know, Jack is miserable, and, you know, Jimmy and Lisa are just Jimmy and Lisa. April and Roy, the exes. And Roy just spills all the tea in this episode, and I loved it. So Roy is over April's house because he's fixing their son's bicycle or something. And she says, you know, if we recall last week, John has re-proposed to her, and she wants to tell Roy, and she's nervous because she doesn't know how he's going to take it. So she takes him a beer outside, and he immediately says, "Oh, when you bring me something, I know it means you want something. What is?" And at first she's just like, "Well, I really need you to fix like those floorboards or whatever in the house." And he's just like, "No, like, what do you really want?" And she's like, "Well, I just wanted to share with you that, John re-proposed to me again, and we're going to have a wedding, and I want to know if you'll come. Like, I want you to be there." And he's like, "A wedding? Like another wedding? Like what a big to do this time?" And she's like, "Well, yeah, He's like, "Why? What for?" And she says, "Well, because nobody was there the first time. It was just us." And he's like, "Yeah, I remember. I know. I remember. It wasn't just an elopement. It was a secret elopement." And I'm like, "Oh, here we go." And he says that when April and John first eloped, they did it in secret. They didn't tell anybody. And he didn't find out about it until when he came over one day and saw like a prescription bottle on the counter, and April had a new last name. That's how he found out. And so he's looking at her and asking, like, "Why would I go to your wedding?" Because she's saying, like, "You really wouldn't go?" And he's like, "No, why would I go?" And she says, "Well, because, like, everything that happened, it's like in the past. Like, we've all moved on." And he's like, "Well, maybe you have, but I haven't." And she's like, "Oh, okay. Okay." And he's like, "Look, I was there. Like, I know what really happened. I know what went down." "Oh, okay, Roy, tell us. What was it?" So he shares with us, like, what April and John don't like to talk about is the timeline of their relationship. But let me break it down for you. And he tells us he was deployed in Japan. And over Labor Day weekend, he could not get a hold of April. She went ghost. She fell off the grid. She wasn't returning the calls. She wasn't picking up the phone. It was days and days and days until finally she called him and told him, "I'm not happy. I want a divorce." And it was like a bomb was dropped on him. It was really out of left field. He didn't understand or know what was going on. She just said that she was unhappy. And so later on, like shortly thereafter, he decides to make a surprise trip home. He doesn't tell anybody. He shows up, and when he walks in the front door, who's there sitting at like his kitchen counter bar stool but John? And that's when he immediately knew, like, oh, this is what's going on. Let April tell it though. John had nothing to do with her wanting to get a divorce. She was lonely, she was unhappy, it had, again, it had nothing to do with John. And Roy can't accept that because she says in Roy's mind, like, it's like, because he was a good husband, he wasn't cheating on her, he wasn't beating her, then she should just be happy and content with that. But he's like, no. I mean, yeah, like, there's more to it. And he says, like, when he, whatever was going on between them at that time, April and John, whether it was physical or just emotional and mental, like, he knew that he lost his wife. And that, that's what sort of brought this divorce on. She'll disagree. Like, no, like, I don't understand why, you just can't understand. Like, you just have it set in your mind that that's what happened and it's not. And he's just like, whatever. Like, I was there. I know what happened. And no, like, I won't be going to the wedding. And she's like, okay, fine. I get, she doesn't get it though. Cause she says to the camera, like, she accepts that he's not going to go, but she really just can't understand why, because they just want him there. He doesn't have to be sitting like in the first pew, but he's her best friend and, she loves him. And I'm just like, no, he's not your best friend. Cause you wouldn't have done that to your best friend. You wouldn't have cheated on your best friend. And I have a hypothesis here that I think I know what's going on. What I think I finally see is that April doesn't want to be the bad guy in this story, but you are. But you are, April, you are. You're the villain. Like, you cheated on your husband while he was deployed fighting for our country with the next door neighbor. And now that he's back, you want to be best friends with him, best friends with, John's ex-wife, because let's not forget, one could call you the home wrecker of that family. And I'm not saying that you did it alone. I mean, John too. John was the home wrecker of your family, So if we can be best friends with Roy and we can be best friends with Lauren, and if April and John can have this wedding and Lauren can be in it and, Roy could be there, then look, everybody, like, if they're okay with it, then you all have to be okay with it. If they're not mad, then you shouldn't be mad. And also, like, we're just this sort of, you know, different kind of blended modern family. It's not weird. It's not shady. It's not scandalous that I cheated with the next door neighbor while his wife was home and my husband was deployed. Like, I really am a good girl. Like, we're all friends. That's what I feel like is happening. And I mean, if she can make it that way, if she can get everybody on board with that narrative, and I hate that word, but essentially, if she can get everybody on board to go with that storyline and that timeline, then, you know, she's still the good girl, you know, in the pictures, you know, in the housewife costume mixing, you know, the cake batter while Lauren's on the floor drinking a 40 in her biker boots. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I think is going on. But it's like, you know, I don't buy it. Like, it's, you know, stuff happens in marriages. I get it. Divorce happens. I get it. But you can't be best friends and be the nice, good girl next door when you're, you know, doing, you know, the guy next door who's married to somebody else. So that's what I think is going on here. And I hope Roy does not go to that wedding. I pray he doesn't go to that wedding. Roy seems like a nice guy who's just still very hurt by what happened, because like I said, it's something that was sort of out of his control. He didn't even have a chance to save his marriage, work on his marriage. When he got home, she had already moved on to somebody else. And I'm not saying that makes her like a bad person. It's just like, it is what it is. Like, you know, and we can't dress it up any other way. You just have to, you know, admit it, move on, and stop trying to like make everybody best friends. And this whole like getting tattoos together, that is strange. The more I think about it, you know, it's this weird way of staying connected to Roy, and Roy still trying to be connected to April. It's odd. Another oddity, which is what this show is. But you let me know what you think. Like, am I off? Like, I just feel like she's trying to be everybody's best friend so she doesn't have to be the bad guy. And I'm not saying she's a bad guy. I'm just saying you're kind of the bad guy in the story, though. I mean, but, you know, we can start a new book, start a new chapter, and, you know, but really let's move on. Let's get off these checking accounts. Let's get him off the deed to the house and really just clean break. And I want Roy to find somebody. Like, he's, like I said, he seems like a good guy. Like, I just want him to find love. I want him to move on from April. Like, I just think it's, some of this is really unhealthy, but I'm rambling. Anyway, that was the episode. Let me know what you think. Rate, comment, subscribe if you like. And I will be back on schedule next week, and I will see you all then. Bye.